she's not a big fan of wisdom literature.
He picks on you too much.
All right. So, Ecclesiastes, also known as Qoheleth, with no U after it, after the Q. The book of Ecclesiastes has always had its fans among the different drummer crowd of Judaism and Christianity. Skeptics, people with a dark vision of reality, folks on recovery from addiction. The rest only know it by a few epigrams and poetic passages and the setting of that the Birds did of it. It was to everything. Wow, you do better with the Good Morning Teacher thing than that.
We have to practice.
You just practice on it. That's the only text that anybody generally knows about. The first time you read it all, like you have, people tend to find it anywhere from baffling to just twisted. It enjoys only a tiny spot in the lectionary. The 18th Sunday, Cycle C, so we heard it last Sunday. Not last Sunday, this last summer, I'm sorry. Chapter 2, verses 21 to 23. It is often heralded as the dark background against which the light of the gospel shines. You'll find this, so sometimes Christians don't know what to do with it, and so they say, well, this just shows you how bad life is without Jesus. Okay, so it's a typical Christian way of ignoring why Jews read this text. I mean, it has a meaning for them apart from Jesus. But they say, this just shows us how bad it is, why the world needs Christ to come in. I mean, that's something to acknowledge, but there's more going on than that. One needs to hear the author of Ecclesiastes out. We need to hear him out. Time and again, we must admit the truth. We don't like that, particularly church people. We say lots of nice, sweet little things, Jesus loves you, and, just hang in a little longer, and blah, blah. Things that we don't have any knowledge of at all, but that we claim in his name. And the author of Qoheleth raises his hand and says, that's bullshit. That word doesn't appear there, but in essence, that's what he's saying to all the little cliches, all the church cliches that we often fall back on when we don't want to acknowledge that life is difficult, complicated. He is the most real of realists. He is very willing to challenge simplistic assumptions wherever they're spoken. He is an attack on muddled niceness. All gain, he says, is temporary. Wisdom has some advantage over foolishness, but this is also temporary. We don't know anything about the author for sure, but by the title. 7 times the participle Qoheleth is used. It means the one who acts for the assembly. It could be like the one who calls the assembly together, or the one who speaks to the assembly. In the Latin name, Ecclesiastes, the word ecclesia is church. Ecclesia means those who are called. Ek kaleo. Kaleo is to call in Greek. Ek is out, or ex is out, like exit, the way out. Ecclesia means those who have been called out. That's what the church really is, called apart from the rest of the world. So in the Latin Bible of Jerome, the book is called Ecclesiastes, which can mean the one who calls, or the one who preaches. But Qoheleth is the Hebrew word, that the same concept. Okay? In chapter 1:1 and 1:12 and 12:11, the author identifies himself with Solomon. But otherwise, that persona vanishes. He says things that no king would ever say later on in the book. So it's likely that the reference to Solomon is that he is the general patron of wisdom, like Moses is the general patron of the law, and David is the general patron of Psalms. So if we take the name, if it was Solomon, well then it's a very old book, 1,000 before Christ. But it likely is not by him. He's using that name in his argument. every piece of literature, even a laundry list, has a plot, moves us from one direction into another. Some works display their plots very prominently. Others make you work for them. Ecclesiastes' plot is so minimal that it doesn't really worth even trying. I mean, people spend a lot of time trying to work out the diagram of where the argument is going. I'm not convinced of it. I've never read it. I've never read a layout, the outline of the book that made it seem like it was going anywhere. There are just, the book, it's just cyclical. It goes round and round and round. There are repeated cliches. There are frequently used vocabulary. There are special poetic units that get repeated. Perhaps most helpful is to think of it as a notebook written by a wise man or woman, a philosopher or a theologian, about the upside and the downside of life. I made my comment earlier that I do not imagine that really it was written by Solomon. The language in the work as we have it shows some Aramaic. Aramaic was the language of Persia. It became the language of, it was the language that Jews spoke in Palestine in Jesus' day. So Jesus spoke Aramaic. But it's a Persian language that related to Hebrew. And so when Jesus says, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, that's Aramaic. It's not Hebrew. So in any case, there are some loan words, there are some Aramaic words in the text suggest indeed, as it comes to us, it was written during the Persian period, between 450 and 250 before Christ. It is strongly secular. There are not many mentions of God in it. And it's quarreling with a conventional pietistic view. But it does echo the work of other wisdom writers. It does try to make sense of life through observation, because that's one element of wisdom. You know, we learn early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise, presumably because we watch some people do that. And because they were studious and rested well and got up early, they were productive. See, wisdom is from experience. It comes from experience. And Qoheleth, though is a wisdom writer, though he blows up a lot of the conventional wisdom, he is of the same nature. He writes in the same style. Okay? What is its ideology, its outlook? The work denies earlier optimistic claims about wisdom's power to secure one's existence. Again, that is that by doing this, your life will be happy. According to this author, there is no discernible principle governing the universe. There's a God. Oh gosh, there's a God, but there's no principle of how we're supposed to act other than keeping the Torah that is going to get us anywhere. The Creator would appear distant and uninvolved. Death cancels all imagined gains. Okay, so if you want an Old Testament book that has absolutely no expectation of life beyond this life, this is your animal. This really takes it home. Because whatever you do, however hard you work, however smart you are, how many books you piled up, when you die, it's gone. So the best advice he gives is to enjoy the good things of life while keeping an awareness of death. Okay? So, I'll repeat that. So, I think a way of capturing his wisdom is to say, since death cancels all imagined goods, his best advice is to enjoy the good things of life while keeping an awareness that death is ahead of us all. It's not a book about God. It's a book about human survival in a world in which work and pain and pleasure all melt in the face of death. Qoheleth holds God in tremendous respect, but will never claim to know too much, like God, what's the phrase I used earlier today? God never gives you more than you can handle. Okay? He would never say anything like that, because that would be pretend to know more about God than we know. In no other wisdom work does an author explicitly base all his teaching on observation and personal experience. So here I'll list 5 themes that kind of capture his outlook. 1, human achievement is weak and impermanent. 2, human life is uncertain. Feeling good, huh? 3, human beings find it impossible to attain true knowledge or true insight. 4, the goal of human endeavor then needs to be joy in the good things of life. 5, God holds every person responsible for following the heart and eyes to happiness. God's going to judge us on how well we used the things that came to us by our heart and our eyes. Got all that?
No.
Okay, number 1, human achievement is weak and impermanent. Number 2, human fate is uncertain. Fate. Human fate is uncertain.
You said human life.
Well, I changed my mind. It's fate. It's fate. Sorry. 3, human beings find it impossible to attain true knowledge and true insight. 4, the goal of human endeavor needs to be joy. Appreciation of the good things. That's why you're here today. No. You're still in Job. Number 5, God holds every person responsible for following the heart and eyes, what they see and understand, to happiness. So let's just kind of do some reading. Again, there's no particular order or organization, I'm afraid, and things repeat themselves. But again, the idea of a notebook, I really like that image. It's a notebook, you scribble things down, and sometimes the same wise word gets repeated more than once. The words of the preacher, literally it's the words of Qoheleth, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. The word is Havel. The B is pronounced like a V in Hebrew. Havel. And it's related to the name Abel. How could that be? Havel means breath or mist. It means a puff of wind. It's nothing. So if you name your child Abel, it's a good guess. He's not going to stay around very long in the biblical book. Okay? Cain and Abel, he appears only to be knocked off by his brother. His name means puff of wind or breath or mist. Okay? So Havel or Abel. Havel Havelim. Vanity of vanities. That's how Hebrew speaks the superlative. You know, we say big, bigger, big, bigger, biggest. Ancients would say, or the Hebrews would say, the biggest, no, the big of bigs. The big of bigs is the biggest. Like Lord of Lords, King of Kings. Okay? Here it's Havel Havelim. The misty, of all mistiness things, this is the most misty. Okay? That's the meaning of it. Sidebar, there's in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Bible, when you copy things, to make the Hebrews, the Jews had created a whole series of ways of making sure that a copy was an honest copy. So, for example, they have counted every letter in every biblical book. So when a copy is made, the text is given to somebody to count the letters. And if the lever count doesn't come out, they know right away, cheap and easy, there's a mistake here. Okay? So that's why, and then you also know, like in Roman numerals, L is 50 and X is 10. So in Hebrew, all the letters have numerical value. And the phrase, Havel, Havelim, Hakal, Havel, which is vanity of vanities, all is vanity. The numerical value of that is 216. And that's the number of verses in the whole book. Now, there's a lot of weird little junk like that in the wisdom writings. Now, did somebody trim it to make it happen that way? We don't know. But there's, the word Havel itself in Hebrew numbers counts as 37. Guess how many times the word Havel appears in the book? 37. So that's an aspect of wisdom writing, a concern with the numerical meaning of things and the value of things. That's why it pops up. You'll see it next month in Wisdom. There's a little game going on there. Not nearly as much fun as this game, but there's a game in the book of Wisdom. And then Revelation, the whole idea of the number of the beast is 666. I mean, that all shows an ancient world's enjoyment of playing with numbers. Numbers are our friends. Do you know why 7 is afraid of the other numbers?
Because 7, 8, 9.
And do you know why? Do you know why the fraction 1/5 is no longer taught in our grade schools? Because it's 2/10. You can use both of those. 2/10. Write that down. Yeah. You guys taking any notes? You can take notes on that. Nice. Okay, chapter 1, verse 2. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What does man gain by all the toil in which he toils under the sun? That's like the main theme of the book. The answer is nada, zilcho. A generation goes, a generation comes, but it is the earth remains forever. The sun rises, the sun goes down, and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south, and goes round to the north. Round and round goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they will flow again. All words are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be. What has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. That's kind of like a very fit summary of the whole work, huh? That little poem. It expresses a certain, don't put too much confidence in the things that you think you understand. Verse 12 is a literary preface. The author reveals something about himself. I, the preacher, so literally it's I, Qoheleth, have been king over Israel in Jerusalem, and I applied my mind to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to the sons of men to be busy about. Again, more happy good news. Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is where he reveals, he's going to do a little experiment. Let's try different things. Let's try, eat, drink, and be merry. Let's see if that'll work. Okay? So, chapter 2. I said to myself, come now, I will make a test of pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But behold, this also was vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? I searched with my mind how to cheer my body with wine, my mind still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the sons of men to do under heaven during the few days of their life. Verse 8. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines, man's delight. Verse 11. Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had spent in doing it. And behold, all was vanity and a striving after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun. So I turned to consider wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do who comes after the king? Only what he has already done. Then I saw that wisdom excels folly as light excels darkness. The wise man has his eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I perceive that one fate comes to all of them. Then I said to myself, what befalls the fool will befall me also. Why then have I been so very wise? And I said to myself that this also is vanity. For if the wise man, as of the fool, there is no enduring remembrance, he died. Seeing that in the days to come all will have been long forgotten, how the wise man dies just like the fool, so I hated life, because what is done under the sun was grievous to me, for all is vanity and a striving after wind. So in quick order, he tried sex, drugs, rock and roll, being a king, eating, drinking, he tried wisdom. And he said, well, I did learn being wise is better than being a fool. So I'm willing to grant that. But even wisdom, when you die, goes away. So again, absolutely no expectation of any kind of existence beyond this life. Again, that's my point earlier, that maybe sometimes the best a Christian commentator can say is, because it so eloquently expresses the lack of hope when there is nothing beyond this life, that's why it shows the need for Christianity. Okay, so that's kind of the link there. Verse 18 is the closing refrain of his experiential element. I hated all my toil, in which I had toiled under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to the man who will come after me. Verse 24. Now, here in verse 24 is his contrary. Here's what I've learned. Here's the best thing to do. This refrain appears about 6 times. Okay, it will appear in 3:13, 3:22, 5:17, 8:15, 9:7 through 11, and 11:9 and 10. Okay, it reads, "There is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. For apart from him, who can eat or who could have enjoyment?" So already in chapter 2, we kind of have, that's pretty much, I could quit. That would pretty much give you what you need to know about Qoheleth. But we're not quitting. We'll do a little more reading. But that kind of sums it up. He's tried everything. And in the end, it didn't satisfy or didn't sustain, or he knows that death will come and take it all away from him. So the best I can come up with is enjoy life as you can, as God sees you to be able to do it. Comments or questions? Concubines, yeah, he tried that too. Now remember, again, the persona of Solomon in the Old Testament is he had all of that. Right? Remember, he had 600 wives he had, and he had all these, and so that's why the persona works as the teacher, because Solomon had a glut of all of that, and in the end, it didn't provide for him the wholeness and satisfaction that we are all seeking. Jesus does the same thing in the Beatitudes. Again, the Beatitudes in the Gospel is wisdom literature. Blessed are the poor. Blessed are they when people mock and insult you because of me. Blessed are you when you those are all the opposite of what ancient culture said. Ancient culture, like modern culture, says pleasure, wealth, power, prestige. Honor, prestige. Those are the 4 good things. If you get them, you'll be fulfilled. And Qoheleth says, I had all that, didn't work. And I can point a lot of people who had all of that. Again, it's the thing I do sometimes during a retreat with young people, college people. I'd say, let's make a list of all the people we know, famous people who have died. I'll start with one that I know that you don't know, Marilyn Monroe. And then they start coming with people who died, musicians and Hollywood figures. Fill a whole whiteboard of people. They had it all. They had all 4 of those things in spades. Didn't make them happy. So why do I suspect I'm going to be any luckier with that? End of commercial message. Chapter 3 is what you know. Okay. People ask, when people choose this for a funeral, I asked, like, why did you choose that? I'm just curious what you hear in it. Sometimes they get it. I mean, they say, well, life is a cycle, and, you know, it's like the cycle of life and death. I said, okay, that's very Disney. You know, I mean, I don't say that. I don't say that.
You think it.
But it's not. It's not. I mean, if that's what they mean, if they mean is like, well, this was going to happen. Mama was going to die. Well, and you're going to die too. And, you know, as long as they get that. But I don't know. I think I don't know what they think. It's like, you know. Look at so it is about the cyclical nature of life, which again is a frustration for the author. You know, the wind blows this way, then it blows that way. Okay? The streams run to the ocean ocean's never full. But look at the end of this, verse 8 of chapter 3. A time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace, which I believe that's the verse that made the song famous in the 60s, because it was the 60s when the Byrds sang it. It was kind of an anti-Vietnam thing.
Pete Seeger song.
Yeah. What gain has the worker from his toil? I have seen the business that God has given to the sons of men to be busy with. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's mind, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. So he talks about there's a kind of a desire, a quest for eternity in us, but we never get it satisfied. Verse 12, I know that there is nothing better for them than to be happy and enjoy themselves as long as they live. There's that refrain again about where to find wholeness. Let's look at verse 16, a digression. Moreover, I saw under the sun that in the place of justice, even there was wickedness. In the place of righteousness, even there was wickedness. I said in my heart, God will judge the righteous and the wicked, for he has appointed a time for every matter and for every word. I said in my heart, with regard to the sons of men, that God is testing them to show them that they are but beasts. For the fate of the sons of men and the fate of beasts is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath, and man has no advantage over the beasts, for all is vanity. All go to one place. All are from the dust, and all turn to dust again. You know, I should suggest you read that at a funeral. That's the toughness of the text. You know, that's what it's really saying. Beasts and human beings, we all end in the same spot. With chapter 4 begins a series of aphorisms. I don't think I used the word too much last month. Aphorism is just a fancy another word for a proverb. Okay? The author of wisdom has collected proverbs too, and so we will find certain collections of proverbs around various themes. Look at verse 4. I saw that all toil and all skill in work come from a man's envy of his neighbor. This is vanity and a striving after wind. So you see, it's competition that urges us on to become good at toil. And that's a vain thing, he says. Verse 5, the fool folds his hands and eats his own flesh. Is he saying there that the fool doesn't have any ambition, doesn't work, and therefore died? I mean, he eats himself up. He's losing his health and his being. Verse 8, I'm sorry. A person who has no one, either son or daughter, yet there is no end to all his toil, and his eyes are never satisfied with riches, so that he never asks, for whom am I toiling? So even a single person, his complaint earlier was that you work really hard, and then your kids, your no good kids inherit all of this stuff. Well, even a single person loses his wealth in the same way. Verse 9 and 10 is sometimes read at a wedding. Okay? Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if two lie together, they are warm. But how can one be warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. Now, it's not meant as a reflection on weddings, but it is a rare Old Testament text that allows us a certain, romantic image of love. The Old Testament doesn't have a lot of romance about marriage in it, but this is a text that can be read that way, that we need, and again, that last line, a threefold cord is not quickly broken, it's a witticism just about life, a cord that has 3 strands or 4 strands, that makes it a stronger cord. So the relationship is that extra strand. Though, of course, if 2 strands are good, well, 12 would be better. Just saying. Yeah. Just, okay. I'm ready for if ever get asked to do a Mormon wedding. Chapter 5, again, has a series of proverbs. Let's shoot to the end, verse 18. Behold, 5:18. Behold, what I have seen to be good and to be fitting is to eat and drink and find enjoyment in all the toil with which one toils under the sun, the few days of his life which God has given him. For this is his lot. Every man also to whom God has given wealth and possessions and power to enjoy them and to accept his lot and to find enjoyment in his toil, this is the gift of God. For he will not much remember the days of his life, because God keeps him occupied with joy in his heart. So there's this I find it an interesting and odd gathering of 2 sentiments that, really that life is kind of short and brief, and if you pile stuff up, it's not yours. But on the other hand, gently enjoy the good things of earth, because that's what God has made them for. Yeah, that's a rare, you don't hear that too often in the Old Testament or in church. So again, that's an element that's kind of unique here. Chapter 6, beginning with verse 3. If a man begets 100 children and lives many years, so that the days of his years are many, but he does not enjoy life's good things, and also has no burial, I say that an untimely birth is better off than he. Chapter 6, verse 7. All the toil of man is for his mouth, yet his appetite is not satisfied. Again, it's an aphorism, but again, summarizes a lot of what he's saying. We consume everything, and in the moment of consuming, there's joy, but it doesn't last, and we're never filled up. No more is the sea filled up, no more are we filled up. How much we see, how much we hear, how much we consume. Verse 12. More aphorisms. Who knows what is good for man while he lives the few days of his vain life, which he passes like a shadow? All very positive there. Who can tell man what will be after him under the sun? You're all feeling really good out there, aren't you? Chapter 8, verse 14. Chapter 8, verse 14. This is the author's verdict on all his experiments with experience. There is a vanity which takes place on earth, that there are righteous men to whom it happens according to the deeds of the wicked, and there are wicked men to whom it happens according to the deeds of the righteous. So what he's saying is that bad people get treated like they're good, in law of retribution, like good people, and good people get the shaft. He says, we see that. I said that this also is vanity. And I command enjoyment, for man has no good thing under the sun but to eat and drink and enjoy himself. For this will go with him in his toil through the days of life, which God gives him under the sun.
This under the sun phrase, do you have a specific meaning for that? I don't remember reading it anywhere else in the Bible except here.
Yeah, it's pretty common here. I just think it means to be, under the sun is human existence. Heavens are above and God lives there, but we are under the sun.
Yeah, I was thinking secular.
Well, and religious too. It's all of that.
Secular,
Yeah, yeah. It's just everything, human reality is life lived under the sun.
I think there was something about that in EED when we were reading the,
Oh.
about Ecclesiastes and that, where it talks about that under the sun.
So do you remember what that is?
It just, the days of your life.
Days? What's the first part of that?
Days of our lives.
What was the first line though?
As
Ascend to the hourglass. So are
The days of our lives.
Thank you for sharing that now.
It wasn't mine.
Boy, you are. That says a lot, but you don't know any scripture. You don't know any scripture, but you know. That says we're all about the same generation. That's,
I don't know how I know that. It was working. I was working while that was on.
supposedly you were working. Chapter 9, verse 7 is again the repeated epigram that you need to enjoy life. I don't need to read it again. Then look at 9:11. Again, I saw that under the sun the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to the men of skill, but time and chance happen to them all. Isn't that's really kind of rubbing our noses in it. It's saying, doesn't matter how hard you work, it's chance. Sometimes. Yeah, it's like, does the bread butter up or butter down?
Yeah.
Sometimes. Chapter 11. You know, this line is quoted, I don't know what it means. Chapter 11, verse 1. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Now, the best explanation I've heard about it is it's a proverb about how to invest in commerce, in shipping. Send out ships, and then maybe they'll come back. You know, but you hear that phrase, don't, cast your bread upon the waters, but it's like, I really don't, this is where it's from. Verse 2. Now, the second verse is what makes me think about the commercial thing is the point. Give a portion to 7 or even to 8, for you know not what evil may happen on earth. So if you have, again, you're going to sell something, well, don't put it in one big heap because thieves may take it, but if you divide it among 7 different travelers, maybe some of them will arrive and therefore you'll succeed. Now, that's a very this-worldly kind of statement about how to succeed in business. Verse 5, as you do not know how the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. Now, these are more like last month's Proverbs. Huh? Verse 6, in the morning sow your seed, and at evening withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. I guess. Again, it's the mystery. You do not know what is going to succeed. So try many things. Try your hand at different things. Verse 8, for if a man lives many years, let him rejoice in them all. But let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. It's coming with season, yeah. Rejoice, verse 9, rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and the sight of your eyes, and know that for all these things God will bring you into judgment. I mean, again, it's like, enjoy life, but remember, God is watching. Chapter 12 is, again, the book, as I told you, doesn't have a real clear direction or structure. But here we have a long poem about growing old. Okay? Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come, and the years draw nigh, when you will say, I have no pleasure in them. So now, we're old enough, most of us, to kind of figure out what he's talking about. But young people have no idea. So, okay, so that the years draw nigh when you will say, I have no pleasure in them. I don't like to eat. Food doesn't taste good. Things aren't, before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened. What's he referring to? Losing your sight. And the clouds return after the rain. I have no clue what that's about. In the day when the keepers of the house tremble and the strong men are bent. What's that? Legs and arms. The keepers of the house, that things you fight off people, huh? And the strong men among which you stand are bent. And the grinders cease because they are few. Now remember, a farm would have a grinder, somebody whose job it was to grind the wheat. But what's he talking about here? Teeth. Mm-hmm. And those that look through the windows are dimmed. Again, eyes. And the doors on the street are shut. Peter, what would that be? Can't even hear me. Peter? What are the doors on the street are shut stands for? Hearing. Hearing. Losing your... Which you're having troubles with. That's why I thought I would give that one to you. And the sound of the grinding is low, your stomach. And one rises at the voice of a bird, sleepless nights. And all the daughters of song are brought low. Your voice gets kind of rough. They are afraid also of what is high. You get concerned about heights. And terrors are in the way. The almond tree blossoms. What color are the flowers of almond tree? Gray and white. Okay. The grasshopper drags itself along. Now, I will tell you what the commentators suggest that is. Your sexual appetite. Okay, I'm not sure why grasshopper, but gives a whole new meaning to that movie, yes, grasshopper. Okay. And desire fails because man goes to his eternal home. Again, eternal home in Ecclesiastes is not heaven, it's Sheol. And the mourners go about the streets. Before the silver cord is snapped, or the golden bowl is broken, or the pitcher is broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. And the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. All is vanity. That verse, chapter 12, verse 8, is a repeat of chapter 1, verse 1. And so probably that was the original end of the collection. And then these things that follow are little epilogal additions, things that have come along the way. So what to make of this? What is the author's vision? Here are 3 offerings. 1, life is full of contradictions. Toil is absurd and without profit, yet it provides the wealth that will give us joy. At the same time, God is just, but the life given to us by God is not full of justice. The author both affirms and denies the value of wisdom. That's one whole paragraph. So again, life is full of contradictions, so is the book. But because God is just, and yet the life God gives is not just. We have to toil for enjoyment, but it doesn't secure our future. The author both affirms and denies the value of wisdom. Number 2, even as you enjoy it, know that life in the world is ultimately meaningless. Number 3, Qoheleth, the critic of the wisdom tradition, undermines traditional wisdom's boast to secure people everything they need. I mean, yeah, that's the goal of wisdom, is to give us what we need to have the good life. And the author doubts that wisdom can do that. Yet he is not a complete skeptic, as he does give direction for a more limited, honest kind of return. Again, look back at the title of the chapter. It's the failure of wisdom. Now again, Ironically, Qoheleth is a wisdom book, but it is like I said last month, it and Job are the minority voice in the Old Testament about wisdom and what it can secure for us and what it can't. Who's got a question? Yes?
I just think it sounds like a really serious episode of depression.
Does that sound like to you? He would say, oh no, dear, I'm just being realistic. You are caught up in flights of fancy.
Sounds like Eeyore.
Eeyore?
I'm okay.
Nothing's bothering me.
Okay.
Maybe he's OCD.
I take it you guys aren't warming up to him. That's what I'm taking. No more questions or comments?
I think it's.
You like him, don't you?
Oh, I just feel so lost and bored
That's him or that's you?
at this.
It's
point.
him, yeah. Well, yeah, he does find life boring, I think.
It's just so boring. It's just you do this, though.
And you do that. You
So what do
you
you want?
empty the dishwasher. You get the dishes dirty. You put them back in the dishwasher. You empty the dishwasher. That's his read on things. Yeah.
And he's done it all.
He's seen it all. He's tried it all. He claims he's tried it all, and nothing has provided him wholeness. Again, as I said, that's why some Christian commentators, ancient and modern, say the purpose of the book is to make us unhappy with the secular pursuit of what we think is going to make us whole. Therefore, we need a redeemer. We need someone who has a hope of life beyond this life.
Yeah.
We need Christ. So, short break, and then we'll go back to our last small group. Short break.
Running by.